which we will not do. That they could provide that at their cost. And then we will take out additional trash containers and possibly the bleacher, no expense to the city to do that. But that's pretty well the extent of it. It's all just kind of an open skate. He has some competitions, friendly competitions with some door prizes that he gives away, just like he's done in the past. So he's just asking for board approval for the park use that day and approval for the event.
And so with the park board approval, he has to have like a facility use agreement, insurance, all that kind of stuff too?
Yes, so that's still in the works, and maybe Mr. Seiler has an update on that. Last I had heard, he's still working on getting that agreement finished and paperwork turned in. He does have, just talked to him yesterday, he has a certificate of insurance that will be turned in with the facilities use agreement. So if the board took action today to approve, it would have to be pending the facilities use agreement and insurance paperwork to be turned in ahead of the event. And
just to provide some history here, it's Mr. Williams, right?
Yes.
Has been actively involved in the Troy Skate Park for a number of years, and it's
decades.
Similar events like this in the past.
Correct.
It's been received really well.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah, very well attended. It seems like our downtown businesses is gaining a lot of support and a lot of momentum with business support and buy-in from the community. So I think overall, I know our mayor's attended in the past and council members.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times.
It's been a really, really nice event for the community and for the kids that participate.
Okay. Well, I can make a motion to approve the usage of the skate park pending that facilities use agreement. The insurances agreement is taken care of, and then if we just relate the concerns about the health department to Mr. Williams there, I can make that motion.
I can second that.
You want roll call?
Yes. Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Emmerich?
Yes.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
The motion is approved.
The next item is the discussion on the new football scoreboard placed at Duke Park Field. Is there someone representing that?
Yeah.
You want to come up to the podium and state your name and address for us?
Name and what?
Name and address.
Oh, yeah. Adam Boyd, 2620 Meadow Point Drive, here in town. Yeah, I'm not real sure what the discussion of the new scoreboard is. We had the initial approval through the Troy Foundation that we had submitted before, and so I don't know. I think there is maybe some questions on the sponsors at the bottom. I'm really not sure. I briefly talked to Jeremy about this, and so I submitted, some of the paperwork that we had. All the paperwork that we had going forward. So just here to maybe clear up any questions you all had.
Okay. We don't have necessarily a process for this advertising right now. It's came up a couple different times, right? And so for that, we do apologize that we don't have that firm process. What that has been historically is, we've worked to, with the various organizations. You'll come up, kind of present what you're looking to do. We'll make sure that it's in line with kind of the aesthetics that we're looking for, and then in conjunction in working with Jeremy Facilities as that process has been. So as this was brought to me, it was, hey, we were originally involved in this conversation early on, and then there was really a long period of no communication, and then bam, there was put up without us. So that's kind of the disconnect is, hey, we started this journey together, there's a big disconnect in the middle, and then here we are, oh my God, there's a scoreboard with a whole bunch of different sponsors on there that, we weren't a part of that approval process, we didn't see those designs ahead of time.
Okay.
So that's what kind of spurs some of this conversation, right? I think aesthetically, as I review it, and we have the photo up here, I think it kind of checks those boxes for us. I think aesthetically, it's kind of what we're looking for. Knowing that where it's positioned, I think in Duke Park, it should be, it's not like we're seeing major roads go by or anything like that. So it's a little different than some of the discussions we've had in the past. Like I said, I think it was just that lack of communication for us Adam, through that process.
Sure.
Hey, we weren't involved in it, which kind of raised some red flags for us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I apologize about that. Our football board, that honestly, that never even came up. It wasn't something that was maliciously done. We just, we felt like we had to go ahead, and there were sponsors on the other one, and it just never really entered our mind, like, oh, we better clear this with everybody else. And one of the things that, with the party that we used, one of the stipulations is that they had to be local businesses, and I know the last one that we got, because we held out for a while, was Monroe Federal, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted, but at the end of the day, it was built for 4 sponsors down there, and they had to get it done. But no, we're looking to use all local businesses and to tie it in, and that. And unfortunately, our goal fell short, and I think that Monroe Federal, the closest one, might be Tip City. So,
Get you.
yeah.
Well, I appreciate the communication and you being honest about that process. The second part we have to go here is this master agreement that was signed and went through with the advertising on Add to Park. And so I don't know, Sue, my understanding is that there is some review of that currently or not?
I don't know if Mr. Titterington wanted to speak to this, but basically, in talking with the Director of Law, the city did not grant any authority for the placement of the scoreboard, and there is no authority for anyone else to enter into a contract on public property other than the Board of Park Commissioners. There also has to be a due process to determine if there would be a scoreboard, how any advertising would be placed, similar to what the board had to go through with Mr. Brewer at the golf course for the sign, where we actually had to go through a bidding process. So, at this point, there's no authority for the sign, there's no authority for advertising. That all has to be reviewed and determined at this point.
So is there really any action for the park board to take right now? Or is it really pending kind of legal review of the document and then resubmit it and go through the process?
The park board can ask that the Director of Law review something for bidding, but I think, we do have to look at the fact that you have to look at the fact that there's something there that has no authority at this point to be there. I don't know if I can, Mr. Titter, say what you want to add anything.
We're not going to take it down, are we?
Well, yeah,
Just that a lot of what the law director is concerned with has to do with not only the authority and the fact that this is public land and it creates some exposure for us, but also the value of the revenues that underlie the agreement, which was part of, the discussion, what the overall value of the project was, similar to what we dealt with several years ago now. It's been more than a few, with the T-Box advertising, and then we get into an equity issue as far as did everybody have an equal opportunity to, businesses have an equal opportunity to say, hey, I'd like to be on the sponsorship. It appears that it was solicited privately, which we relied on with the golf course project, but again, that was all initially dictated through an RFQ process and formal bidding. So that's where we get into some of the legal concerns, and so I'm not sure, I didn't have a direct conversation with Mr. Kerber about it, but I'm not sure what he told us how to proceed from here.
At this point, he said that the city can only allow a scoreboard or advertising if the city uses a bid process similar to what we did for the golf tee signs, and that there is no legal authority for anyone to enter into that agreement. There would have to be an agreement determined through a bid process.
okay.
When did this come to the city's attention?
So I first, I
Right.
first received an email last September, like September 8th, I want to say, from Dustin
Moore, yeah.
board member, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And asking for a letter of support to the foundation. And that, at the time, was just for the scoreboard, no mention of any kind of advertising. So a letter of support, I drafted a letter of support to the foundation in late September for the scoreboard, and so that was the first and last of the communication on the board.
And then when did we become aware of the master agreement?
Just Adam sent that to me
Yeah,
last
for
week,
all
probably,
paperwork, just
Okay.
last week, yeah.
to get it before you, so.
Yeah,
And again, I mean, like, it wasn't something that we even discussed as it being wrong. Like, I don't, it never even entered my mind that, I mean, we're a nonprofit trying to fund, for the Troy youth, and I mean, we made $3,000 off of it so far, and we haven't even gotten any of the money yet, and so it had nothing to do with, anything other than providing for the kids, so.
And I don't think anybody's accusing you of
Right.
being
Yeah.
malicious by any means.
Well, the malicious part, not in the financial thing, the malicious part, I just meant, like, we weren't trying to go behind your back.
Right.
Yeah.
you weren't seeking forgiveness rather than permission.
Right.
No, I get it, unfortunately. This is where my line of, my profession stays in business, is because people are having to call lawyers when they get into pickles like this. And frankly, I think our responsibility is just to talk to our council, law director, and try and navigate where to go from here, because this is kind of a conundrum.
Yeah, and we have not had those conversations, right? I have not been able to touch base with them at all, as of late. Like I said, we just, the agreement is something new to the equation.
We just received the agreement, there's not really been time, I don't think, to fully look at it. It's just that the only entity that could enter into an agreement would be the city.
Yeah. So at this time, do you want to go through, I mean, I don't think there's any action to be taken here right now, right? I mean, we need to, at this point, possibly delay this to the next meeting, gather some more information from city legal, or kind of looking
Well,
forward?
Ben, I don't know that there's any action we could take, because,
It seems like the facts on the ground are that there is this thing that is located on the public land that is not supposed to be there. And that doesn't mean that, it's my opinion or any of the other commissioners' opinion, that anyone meant to find themselves in this place, or, did anything knowing that it might not be allowed, but that's the reality of it, is that technically it shouldn't be there. So we need to probably talk with Mr. Kerber about what the city's position is in terms of how to rectify that.
Because there are also questions of insurance. It's not covered on our schedule of insurance, it's not insured where the liability lies. There are a number of questions that have to be looked at.
Okay.
So my recommendation would be that you just table this item for today. We have another follow-up conversation, maybe a conference call
Yeah.
with the president, and if Grant has, Mr. Kerber has some real serious concerns, such as, well, you need to cover up the advertising or something like that, then we could reconvene in a special meeting, otherwise take it up in the next park board and try to close the loop. And maybe even by that time, can't promise you, we could have an overall draft policy, so that as we move forward, we don't run into this kind of confusion in the future.
Yeah.
That being said, so the scoreboard was purchased by us with our money with the Troy Foundation. The agreement was for those sponsors only. If that is the issue and the only issue, then those could be removed, and, I mean, if we have to, then, and I don't know about breaking the contract with them, but like I said, we haven't received any funds whatsoever, for this, and if that's the case, if we're not allowed to use that as a fundraiser, I guess, is what we called it, if we're not allowed to use that, then, I mean, it could just be, it's in pieces, those pieces can be taken down, so.
Well, I think that's probably why Mr. Kerber would need to participate further, because, and I'm not giving my legal opinion on this, I'm just commenting as a commissioner of the park board, that it looks like from this master agreement that there's a split in the commissions between the advertising company and the association. If I were representing the advertising company, I'd probably be pretty upset if you guys broke the contract and we don't get our commission because the signs are covered. And the city's probably gonna have to at least be somewhat plugged in this conversation to avoid all of us ending up in some dispute about it. So, it just seems like there's far more questions than answers at this point.
Yeah.
And not suggesting at this point necessarily that the signs be removed or covered, unless Mr. Kerber says that. I don't believe he said that to this point.
Sure.
The issue, though, is, maybe one other note of clarification, once anything is installed or placed on that property, assuming they've given permission, as at least a couple of you members know, because you've dealt with it before, those attachments become the property of the city and or the park board. So that scoreboard and advertising, with or without the advertising, is accepted and approved. It's approved with that becoming our property, which then adds another burden of liability to the city, and that's partially why, or in large part, why Mr. Kerber is concerned.
Yeah.
So.
And rightly so.
It's Mr. Boyd, correct?
Yeah.
Well, you know, listen, we appreciate you coming up, appreciate kind of this dialogue going back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, I think that kind of what we decided, we don't think there's any malicious intent on your side, right? We just want to make sure that, you know, we can go through the process with the city legal department, and just kind of rectify anything that's out there. So, like I said, we appreciate the communication, want to stay in communication with us. I know you've been working with Jeremy on that, so thank you very much for coming in and
absolutely
shining some light on this. No doubt there'll be probably more of this moving forward, right, as we try to work to come up with a resolution.
Sounds like it.
So
I'll move to table these.
And I'll second that.
all right. So you want to take the roll on that, or?
Yes. Make your motions. Okay. Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mr. Emmerich?
Yes?
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Alrighty. Next item on the agenda, we have the review request to install a storage shed at Duke Park Concession Stand building. You're a popular man today, huh?
I've got a couple more, too.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about that briefly.
Yep.
Do you want to walk us through that scenario and what's going on?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, okay.
The concession stand itself, you know, with all the equipment that we have in there, we have the upstairs that's pretty much packed to the gills. We've cleaned out all of our equipment. We've recently, in the past 2, going into 3 years, have replaced, you know, with all brand new uniforms, new helmets, new pads, just kind of rebuild it from scratch. We've got a lot of, you know, tackling pads in there and stuff like that. We're full. On Saturdays, when our games are, we grill food and stuff like that. We're looking for a place to, when we dress the field, something to put that stuff in that, it's not, it's things that we purchase on our own. It wouldn't be city property. So, you know, if there was like a break-in, it would be on us. We're not looking for a permanent structure, something that could be removed, if you guys chose to. Just something to clear out some of the clutter so we can move around in there a little bit.
Okay. So we have seen these requests come through before, so we're very familiar with this type of request. You know, Mr. Titterington kind of alluded to it there, that, you know, once that on city property does become city property.
Right.
I can't speak to the contents, but the structure itself will become city property. So I have no issue with, you know, allowing necessarily a shed if you work with Jeremy on locations and make sure that it meets the specifications that we're looking for. You know, I think that we can work to absolutely a resolution there. I got no issues with it, but the understanding is that, yeah, once it goes on city property, that shed will be ours, you know, whether you move to a different park or not.
Right,
kind of
yep, along with the scoreboard, we're not taking them with us.
All right.
The other thing to consider, just real quick, would be, I don't know if they've got a recommendation for the base that goes under, or, I know it won't sit on an actual foundation, but like how that was gonna sit, and then any kind of permitting. I don't think the Miami County Building Department will require a permit, but you would wanna look into that as well, just to be sure that they don't require some kind of a permit for a shed to go up.
Foundation, we would just level it off with gravel instead of putting a slab there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. And then you're talking right up against the concession building?
yeah, right up against it
Okay. On the east side, I'm assuming?
yes.
Or, I'm sorry, the south side, or, the east side is the front of the concession stand?
It'd be facing the pond.
Okay,
Yep.
so the south side. Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I have no issues if, you know, under the understanding, like I said, about the property, and then just to work with Mr. Drake on the placement of it. So I'll make a motion to approve the installation of that storage shed by the Duke Park concession, pending those two things that we mentioned with Jeremy there, the placement and just the coordination of it with him.
Second?
So you want to call the roll?
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Emery?
Yes.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
All righty.
Another thing I'd like to ask for, this is something for a fix for this year. Since we've moved into a travel league, we've got a lot of towns coming from all over. Bellbrook, you know, Waynesville, Clinton, Massey, like all over the place. And our with the cheerleaders, our numbers are up over 200. So when we have these other towns that come in, and, you know, a lot of grandparents and older folks, the bathroom issue becomes pretty big. We have one porta-john that's about halfway in between the baseball field, and then we have, of course, the running water over at that shelter house. Hearing from folks over the past couple of years, it becomes really problematic. I think long-term, you know, we would love to see maybe another shelter house towards the soccer fields, in between the football field and the soccer fields, with actual running water. I know that would be a dream scenario, because, you know, even the soccer, you know, people, it's even a further walk for them. I mean, it's a half a mile, you know, and just with the one porta-john, we played Piqua this weekend, we'll have over 1,000 people there, just in and around that area. One porta-john just doesn't, it's just not enough, and that walk over to the shelter house, that's quite a far walk.
Yeah. When we have other soccer tournaments and things like that, when we're around the Strawberry Festival, do they bring in additional porta-johns, and who's responsible? Like, is that done by the tournament?
Or whoever puts the tournament on is responsible for bringing the additional units in.
Okay,
Yes.
so hypothetically, I mean, Troy Junior Football could work with us as far as renting Porta Johns as a temporary, solution if
Yeah, so
with the approval
as we
process.
get into full swing here, there's a second unit that does get delivered to that north location.
I don't believe we did not have one last year.
Okay.
Yeah, last year the state as one.
We were in a transition last year between mobile sanitation and Porta Clean taking over, so this year we've got that back to a local company, so that second one will come back. And typically, I think that's what we've done in the past. That's at the city's expense. We do that to cover both football and soccer for that kind of the northeast parking lot. But it's still, it's still a walk, and it's
It's a
a
haul.
little bit of a walk.
It's a haul.
And,
And, you know, it really is, and when I'm there and people are outsiders are looking at me and I'm like, well, it's rather embarrassing, with it's such a pretty park, pretty town, and then that's what we're offering them. I think people that live in Troy they know what to expect. To me, it's a really bad look. So, not to mention the length of the walk for older folks who can't walk that far.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate the input. It sounds like, when is the timeline for that second one getting delivered? September, you said?
yeah, it'd be within the next couple of years as we
Okay.
get into full swing with soccer.
Okay, so let's just make sure that gets done and we don't drop the ball on that. And then, it is 100% noted, the comment there, and, maybe we can take a look about that as far as how that fits into.
Yeah, that's been a problem for
Yeah.
years. And my kids went through Troy's football program.
Right.
And it is a haul.
Yeah.
And going over that driveway to get over to
To
the
get up
flush toilet
top, yep.
is difficult for older people.
And, my mom doesn't want to use a porta john.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. My mom's the same way.
I don't want to use the porta john.
Yeah, but that's our options right now,
Yeah.
so.
One more thing, and this is going forward for future years. Again, I told you about the numbers that we have, and I think they're only increasing. COVID really hurt the numbers. Football in general, about 5-7 years ago, with year-round baseball, year-round soccer, numbers started dwindling. And I know that, when it was a Troy in-house league, people used, Carriage Crossing and other green spaces around town. Like I said, between flag, which we started last year, this is our second year of flag football, K through 2, and then on into tackle, 3 through 6. We've got a couple hundred kids. We do not have a practice field. I think we have counted 18 soccer fields and one football field that we're not even supposed to practice on. And we love the work that Jeremy does and the facilities that we do have, no complaints there. But I've never seen soccer being asked to go practice at Cookson. We're not asking for 4 fields. We would like to have another field, just designated to football. Something that we can practice on, we can take our turns practicing on it, with the amount of kids we have, it would be nice to have a lined field that our coaches could work with. And of course, we're good with what we have this year, but going forward, it would be, we offered to use Archer Park this year and thought, Allie kind of chuckled at that, and she's like, you won't be able to get that. So, anything else that we could use, other fields, it could be right by the main field, we would love to have at least something we could consider a practice field. So, that's all I have.
Jeremy, do you have any?
Yeah, just Adam and I have had that conversation. We do have a lot of soccer fields. We also have a lot of soccer teams. All of our, it's a good problem to have, but all of our fields are fully programmed right now. I think Mr. Seiler may have stepped out, but he might have the numbers better than I. But that is a challenge. We're aware of it. We've got the same situation on baseball fields, soccer fields, and the football field right now. To your point, yes, we've only got the one football field. I know that creates a challenge. I have asked them to stay off of it as much as possible. It does take a huge beating during the season. We put a lot of work in the off-season into the field to get it back to condition for play for their season. So I appreciate you working with me on trying to keep the play off of it, but it's hard to do that, I know. That's just an ongoing challenge that is, that we're working on, through recreation and parks together to try to alleviate some of that. But it's something we're aware of, and we've just got to work through it, because we don't just have an open green space or a field somewhere else that we can use because they're already fully programmed, unless we go to like a carriage crossing or a Haywood ball field, Campbell Park kind of place.
Is that an option?
It is,
I know
years
it's
ago.
My only, like I said before, my only complaint with that, is I've never seen soccer practicing out at Carriage Crossing. You know what I mean? They have designated fields for them. And our numbers are pretty comparable. I know there's a lot more teams in soccer, but our numbers they're pretty, you said 400?
Yeah.
We have 200.
Somewhere in there.
We have, they have 18 fields, we have one. And I get the programming, and again, it's not a complaint, it's a wish, even more so than anything else, but,
What would be, what is, from, just so I can, what your perspective is, as opposed to a Haywood field or a Carriage Crossing green space, you keep talking about a designated field. What would you like to see? What's the bare minimum requirements to be satisfactory?
well, all of our equipment is stored at the building.
Right.
So we have sleds out there, we have tackling dummies, we have a lot of practice gear that all the coaches use. So, I mean,
It's more the logistics.
yeah, it's more of a logistics thing. Plus, we'd like to have a field that is lined, so we can, when you're practicing plays, it's nice to have lines on the field. It's beneficial from a schematic point of view, so,
But
anyhow.
you could line a green space with the logistics problem.
And I even said to my coaches, because I had talked to Jeremy over by the White Barn, like maybe putting a football field over there and then lining that, and and he was willing to do something like that. And it didn't go really any further than that, and that's on me, not on him, because I didn't ask him to, but yeah, this one extra field that we can call our practice field, that would be the only thing we would, be in line for, so, anyhow. I appreciate your guys' time, and sorry about the scoreboard.
Listen, thank you for the communication. Obviously, we're gonna be in touch here, so I appreciate you coming up and, like I said, bringing us up to speed on that, okay?
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item we have on the agenda is the, onion bag project, but it seems like,
He did email me and cancel for today, so I gave him the date of the October meeting, so we can see if he wants to come back. There's a lot of questions as far as, it's a cool project, I think, worthwhile to look at, but there's a lot of questions as far as maintenance, upkeep, and exact locations that they are wanting to place these kiosks. So we need to have him here to ask those questions.
So,
Move to table?
Yep. I'll second that. So do you need a roll call on that or not?
Writing down who made it. All right. Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Emmerich?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is approved.
Next item on the agenda is reviewing the Addison Landing subdivision and providing a recommendation to Troy Planning Council that the parkland within the subdivision to be a private open space and not a public parkland. Austin? Let's do that.
Yes, sir. So we received an application for the Addison Landing subdivision. This is located off Dorset Road and Lytle Road. The proposed plan includes 208 buildable lots with 8.9 acres, which is 15.9% of the acreage of the development as open space. This does exceed our subdivision regs requirements of 3% open space. The applicant is requesting to dedicate 1.73 acres as public parkland at the southwest corner of the development that faces Lytle Road, instead of private open space or fees in lieu of. However, we have had further discussions, and they are not opposed to having this private open space maintained by the HOA. Staff is recommending the acceptance of private open space rather than public parkland due to the following. Westbrook Park is less than 1 mile away from the proposed development. The comprehensive plan states that Troy has nearly 5 times the recommended park acreage, and the park department staff cannot maintain more inventory of parkland. And that'll conclude my report.
You left off Waterbury Park, which it's less than
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
less than a stone's throw from Waterbury Park as well. So historically, when we've done this, we've accepted the fees in lieu of the park, but you're saying in lieu of fees in lieu of, you're just going to say, hey, they designate the open space, but they're responsible for the HOA and the upkeep of that open space.
Yes, sir, the subdivision regs permit that per 111706.
Okay. Any questions from the park board?
What year is the comprehensive plan that's coming from? Is that the current comprehensive plan?
Yes, sir.
The old one?
That's the old one.
Do we know how long ago? Well, Tim, do you know?
It was adopted in 2000, or 2005, it was updated every 5 years, so I'm assuming it was probably 2010 information.
Okay, so, not to say that I have any reason to disagree with the analysis vis-a-vis the comprehensive plan, but we're not sure exactly if that's still, that 5 times the recommended acreage, is it based on older data at least, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then, it looks like the land designated so far has some elevation to it too, is that as well? Is it a little bit of a mound, is that what I saw?
Yeah, that's to protect the space from the eventual realigned Lytle Road.
So hypothetically, if the park board were to go against the recommendation, the space provided could be just like a mounded space, like, is that correct? I mean, so if we accepted that space, it's not like it's a field. I can't put a football field in there, for example, right?
Right, you wouldn't be able to put a football field
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So is the plan to just keep it an open space, no equipment, no anything, or will that HOA determine that?
The HOA would determine that.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
Is Lytle being rerouted?
There is some road improvements along Lytle as well as Dorset.
Okay.
It's essentially gonna be right there.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where the...
The diagrams you're seeing is a visibility study for the homes adjacent to this space to make sure that this open space would not hinder the safe maneuverability into the driveways around.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I want to be sensitive of is accepting fees in lieu of our green space in areas where we don't have park access or there's not park access, but being that we have multiple parks within a close proximity of that area, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I'll defer to either one of you if you want to take action on it. But I would say I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah, I'm not either. I would motion to approve.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but as the newest member who has previously said that I think we need a better strategic plan as to what to do in these scenarios.
Yep.
I'd much rather see this be retained as private green space rather than no green space whatsoever, because at least it's preserving some ability of the residents to have that space.
That's why I feel like I can approve it, because they designated green space.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I won't, I'm not gonna object to this, but I think that this is a reason why we need to come up with a plan
Yeah.
as to, this is another subdivision that is coming in where we're using old comprehensive plan data. Not sure if it's still valid or not. It could still be valid based upon, you know, the current data, but we're not really sure how much acreage we have versus that. And obviously, this doesn't, none of what I just said affects what Jeremy might say about the Park Department staff's ability to maintain it. So that's, but that also becomes the further discussion over where does, depending on what kind of strategic plan we have about how much space we need, what do we ask the city to look at in terms of budgeting? You know, if we merit more resources to provide for the space we need to have in the grand scheme of the big plan, then we need to ask the city for additional funding to provide for it. So that's just my way of saying we need to look at this in the future.
Yep. So is there action to be taken here? Do you want to make a motion?
I already said
Okay.
motion to approve.
All right, and is there a second?
Second.
Sue, call the roll.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Emmerich?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
That is all under new business. I see Mr. Hinkleman's out there. Is there any other business to come before the park board today?
No, just a reminder, the budgets are coming up, which I know is no surprise to you, and that we just want to remind you that we're anxious and know that you're considering our request for maintenance for next year, and Jeremy, I know, has been working with some people, and we just want to let you know we're still here and thriving, and we think we're over 100 people a day are playing pickleball, and we have a short-term plan that'll get us into next year. And after that, we need a bigger plan to be looking down the road, so we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Awesome. Good. Mayor, anything?
Yeah, this is quite the meeting.
I know, right? Right? Some dialogue, right? So, alrighty. If there's nothing else to come before the board, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.